are former members who are like, I've been thinking about coming back and now I'm seeing you all the time. It must be fortuitous for us to come back, but we had 137 leads this month from various sources. And then the other thing that I'm doing is I'm taking all of the leads that I get and I'm giving them to linked selling. And then they retarget it and make a lookalike list. So my Facebook quality of my leads and volume has increased this month. And then I don't know if it can't be coincidence. I also have had an increase in my web leads as well. And I think that's just from being out in the community. We've also, I'm doing summer camp in my own school. I've only done 4 weeks this summer, which has been fine. It's short. It's not even a full day. So that's offset my income too. We're teaching at the Boys and Girls Club every week too. So we're doing like a PE teacher for the day. And then for retention, we're doing like costume week, Olympics themed week. So the kids are like, we can't miss this week. I want to wear my costume. So that's been great for retention. My classes are not micro-sized like they have been in the past. So I've had a good amount of people there. It's just been, I think I've just upped my game this summer. I just was like, I don't want to have a bad summer. So.
Well, congratulations and well done. And by the way, we had this conversation for an hour yesterday on that summer marketing or back to school marketing, whatever the heck it is, timeline now, meeting. But Krista, you started out the conversation with something that we beat our head against all the time, is so many martial arts school owners say, I'm a teacher, I'm a master instructor, all I want to do is teach classes, and can't I find some agency who will do a good job just giving me leads and call it a day. And what you've obviously been out there doing is, one, effectively working with a quality agency. In this case, we endorse link selling, and I'm sure there's others that do a halfway decent job. But in part, what you mentioned was generating leads yourself and then feeding them back in over to Tanner, Kate, and gang, and letting them do retargeting on those leads. And then you mentioned the second thing, which I tell people all the time, is, we love Rev Marketing. They do a great job, but you really shouldn't be expecting for organic search and pay-per-click to create 100% of your traffic. What you should be doing is stirring the pot everywhere you go. And then what you're going to see is, as your Facebook results get better, your website opt-ins are going to get better. The structure and effectiveness and conversion rates on your website's important, because people are going to see you online, then go to your website, not follow through the landing page. But secondarily, as you said, they're going to see you all over the community. They're going to see you, in this case, in the Boys Club and in the live events. And then they're going to go look at, the way I tend to phrase is, they're going to go Google you. And when they Google you, they're going to see whether there's people saying good or bad things about you first. And then they're going to end up at your website. I mean, it's either they call you or end up at your website. And most people are going to end up at the website, sadly. I'd rather they call you. But that's just you mentioned a couple key things. Anything to add to that? That was a pretty good list already. But you had said in that text you sent over today that, during COVID, and of course, Seattle was one of the more hardest hit areas from the standpoint of closures and reactions and people freaking out and everything else. I would say it was right up there with New York City. It certainly didn't help that if I remember, the original outbreak was in a hospice that's practically across the street, if I remember correctly, from Jason's school. So not too far from you. That certainly impacted people's psychology. But you had said you were down to about 13,000 coming out of COVID, and now you're at 100,000 for what people think is a bad month. So what would you say some of the longer term implementation things that have impacted have been?
Longer term has just been really the first biggest thing that I did, and I was able to do this because of you guys, was canceling my transport after school program.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was uh, it was not, it was a time, energy and time suck, and it was detracting from my regular program and not allowing me to have a more robust martial arts program. So that's been a huge step for me, and not doing 10 weeks of all day summer camp and pulling my hair out and dealing with that has been huge as well. And
And
just
Krista, just not to interrupt you, but just for those out there who don't know about the after school, if you would have done 100,000 with the after school, your profit would have been, not a fifth of what it was with not doing an after school and then doing the 100 grand. So that's where some schools miss. We hear schools that did, I did 60,000, but they did after school, and then that's almost a break even on an after school at 60, but 100,000 with no after school. That's a real milestone, and congratulations on that.
yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That's
But good. Finish
game
the
changer.
thought there, Chris.
Yeah, that was our biggest game changer. And then of course implementing the renewal program and the renewal steps, and I'm still working on that. That's a work in progress for sure. I mean, everything that I'm doing is still a work in progress.
Sure.
But I feel like as long as I'm doing something more than I did last month, last quarter, whether that be marketing, working on my curriculum, all of it, then I'm always thriving and growing. That's more of the bigger steps in terms of my overall growth.
You bet. You bet. And
So even at 100,000, there's a lot of room to grow.
Oh, absolutely. So much room to grow because I'm still learning. I still like sometimes I'm like Grandmaster Smith says, sometimes you're just flying by the seat of your pants, Krista. And I'm like, I sure am. Like that's I feel like that a lot. And so I have a lot of room to grow for sure.
yes. Yeah, and we were going through on Tuesday, and a lot of the same people who are on today were on Tuesday, because a lot of you are mastery and leadership rather than quick start. But one of the moving pieces that your average revenue per student, we were calculating about 350 a month, and so that helps a lot. The number we were talking about on Tuesday is that you're about a 240 active count, and probably growing pretty quickly with all of this summer activity going on. And again, people think that summer is slow. Well, summer is a great time, as you just illustrated, to go find people, and not only that, but your Facebook traffic and your Google traffic, your website traffic, et cetera, all went up at the same time. Mostly because, in my opinion, because you're stirring the pot and then retargeting people who already shown interest. But if we were going to go through some of those pieces, what is your trajectory on student retention? How are you feeling about that?
My student retention goes down a bit in the summertime. That's why I'm happy to be offsetting it, because we do have a number of people who just leave for the entire summer.
Sure.
And then so that's been something that I've been working on. It's been also improving with the renewals, because now that people are getting renewed, they are interested in getting their black belt, and so that's been slowly improving. I think that's one of my biggest areas to continue to work on, is my retention. But work in progress.
Yeah, well, it makes a huge difference. So congratulations, Crystal. I'm looking forward to you being a $200,000 a month school. It's very, 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 very exciting. And the other thing, and again, I sound like a broken record, but part of what's exciting is, you're not running 1,000 students with 100 kids in after school care, and 12,000 square feet with ridiculous overhead. I do see that in the industry with 10 different programs, and they're running everything from a skateboarding program to transport after school care to karate and MMA. But people who hit what seems like an impressive bragging rights top line number in those type of facilities typically have very little bottom line. maybe 5% to the bottom line. And that's just not where you want to be. What you want to do is you want to be striving for incredibly good student quality, which you are, striving for incredibly high student retention, which you are, building a long-term stable base, which you are, and have a strong positive net profit while you're able to compensate your staff well. I mean, that's, that seems like the natural objective. If people get so lost in the top line that they miss, it's highly compensated people, it's you getting compensated well, it's having high quality students and keeping them a long time, and having as little brain damage in the operation as possible, which, there's always going to be quite a bit, because there's, the market's always changing. You're always learning new things. As soon as you get one wheel, rolling like a top, something else, breaks, or you find issues there. So, there's no avoiding that when you're running a business, but, excellent. And Ben, we didn't mean to, by the way, while we're at it, steal your thunder. You were having a record month too, as if I recall.
Yes, sir, I did. Ironically, excuse me, last night, I actually had like an emotional moment. When I signed up with you guys. I was skeptical. I really, honestly, like, what I typed in the Facebook group was true. I thought you guys were just full of it. But I had
you actually came on one of these meetings and said that and asked everybody if we were.
I was calling you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm sorry about that. I owe you an apology.
That's fine. If I remember correctly, I encouraged you to do so.
Yes, sir.
That was I think the first one that actually had done it on the meeting.
Yeah.
And I had two choices. I was going to shut down my school and be a driver of a produce truck, or I was going to try you guys out, despite the fact that, Master Oliver, I'm so sorry. My wife thought you were a smooth talking, sleepy-eyed car salesman. But
well, I do need to get my left eye reopened again.
Don't change the fucking thing, sir.
Yeah.
But I realized right away that you run this like you would run a martial arts school.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think about the students that I have, I don't care how athletic they think they are. If they say, I don't understand why you're asking me to do this. This is outside of my comfort zone. I'd rather not. Like, those guys aren't going to, I have not a talented athlete, but he's the #1 ranked, Muay Thai fighter in America, because he just does what I say. It's not because he's a great fighter. He just does what he's told. In the first month, I remember thinking, God, if Master Smith says, do more, grassroots marketing and keep track of your stats. If he says that one more time, I'm going to blow up. All right. Because I could do better at marketing. I am spotty on my stats and I'm trying to improve. But magically, I have $1 million school. Even though there's still plenty of things I don't completely understand, but this is very simple. You guys are sensei. And if I just treat it like that, somehow, it's working out. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen last night. God, I got $1 million run rate. I never would have thought. Never would have thought.
Now, Ben, I don't know if I'm disappointed or excited that Krista beat the pants off of you. So you have a challenge.
Krista, Scott Sullivan, if you look at this, I'm coming for you guys. I promise. I am coming.
Yeah, don't forget Ben Harrison, Jason.
Yeah, of course.
And,
no, trust me. I remember telling Scott at one of the live meetings, "Oh man, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna beat you." And his wife looked at me like, and I got scared. She's all, "No, you won't." So it's kind of
right. Brandy's pretty fierce.
Yes, she is fierce.
I think that comes from being mom of a baseball team.
Fair enough.
Well, so what would you Ben attribute your growth to? And I know you're our famous "I don't know what I did, it just worked" guy, but if you were to give everybody else some usable takeaways.
Well, first of all, I did work my ass off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did. I went to I had to take one thing at a time. I made the mistake of trying to do everything at once, and that was tragic. But for instance, refining the capture process when somebody raises their hand, I treated refining that process step by step as if the house was burning and my kids were on the inside, or like until I got the intro, in one's hub, I couldn't breathe. That's how I treated it, with urgency. So I worked my ass off. That's number one. Even if I didn't understand it, yeah, really, bandit signs? Are you serious? Okay, yes, sir. All right. That's number one. But number two, for instance, we just implemented the ID card system. I was waiting and waiting and waiting on that. And a month after, suddenly my retention is so much better. It made all the difference in the world, right? So that was incredibly helpful. The ID system really, really helps. And implementation of the leadership program was great, but like, I don't need to get into that now. It took me a long time to implement the 2-week check-in because I just didn't have training the staff up and getting the staff on board. A lot of times in the beginning is difficult because the staff is not used to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right. But once we get them on the same page and get them trained up and make sure there's a standard, make sure that everybody understands what the goals are, understand what the mood is. Rule of threes is great, man. Like everybody's name gets called within 3 feet of the door. Everybody's name gets called 3 times during class. Everybody gets touched 3 times during class. Do that 2-week check-in so you can head off anything you see coming and get them pre-framed for what's to come. And like, just step by step, I just took one piece at a time and just did my best to understand and implement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one thing I'd mentioned about Ben is a few times there you were frustrated with having so much to do and feeling overwhelmed, but you kept going through it. And if you that's part of what being part of this group is and being on the Tuesday meetings, but you kept coming instead of getting overwhelmed and going, oh, I can't go. And I just put your head in your sand, because eventually you end up getting through everything.
100%. But as a room full of martial artists, we've all seen that on the floor. You tell your students do X and they're like, oh my God, there's no way I can make it. Dude, that's what you're paying for. Be miserable for a minute. You'll be better on the other end.
Ben, one of my favorite stories with you, and you might remember back when you did it, what I said to you, but in December, that was, I think, your first or second month in our group, or you had been with us a month and a half. And you did, if I remember correctly, around 35 or 30 something. And that in reality, at where you were, doubled your gross, which,
Correct.
You were ready to close your school, and you doubled it in the first month. And then the thing that was what we call the tearjerker was when you were talking about how it was the first time you were able to take your family on a big Christmas vacation.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like what it was it was the first time I